Welcome, everybody. This is Alex Lopez from the Alex Lopez Rocks YouTube channel and the Alex Lopez Band. This is a segment on my Rocks channel called Alex Lopez Talks. And today I've got a very special guest. He is the founder of Ronin Fitness, a very talented fighter. Make some noise for Daylon Cossingham.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Daylon, so when did you because you're a co-owner of Ronin Fitness, when was your company formed?
So it was formed officially, I'm trying to think, what year is it now? 2021. So we officially formed it at the very beginning of 2020, thinking it was going to be a normal year.
Yeah, before the world shut down. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really turn out that way.
Yeah.
But we started it in 2020, but I had been working and planning on it for probably about 8 to 9 months before that. So 2019, I would say, is when the idea and the company really started to form as far as its roots go. But it really didn't actually establish itself until 2020.
Excellent. Now, you guys do online trainings and you also do personal training and martial arts training.
Yeah, so our online training is a subscription-based platform. One of the things that one of the reasons that I formed that was everyone was in their house from COVID and needed things to do, and it seemed like the smart route to go. But more to the point than that is personal training, and if you really look at the health industry as it is altogether, if you go to Whole Foods versus Market Basket, which one has higher quality of food? Whole Foods. Which one is more expensive? Whole Foods. Hiring a personal trainer is also expensive. Hiring a martial arts instructors are expensive. And what I've come to realize is that being healthy is often synonymous with being wealthy. So the subscription was really put in place for people who can't afford a trainer to still have some level of instruction with them on the go whenever they want. So if they want to go to the gym, but they don't know what to do, they can pull it up and figure out what workouts work best for their chest that day, or what works best for their legs, or, and can kind of formulate from that. Or if they're in their home, they can just follow a live class for legs, chest, or whatever, and still work it that way too. So that's the subscription. As far as in-person training goes, I currently do my personal training at another company right now, but I do still on my own time make place for in-person clients as well. And then from there, it depends on what they want to do. If they're interested in learning fighting from me, cool. If they're more interested in learning, personal training and getting into shape, that's cool. I can design programs as well.
Awesome.
Nutrition is the other thing that we have as well, too. Nutrition programs.
Okay. Now, going back to your online training, now you guys, I've tried it before. I think it's fantastic. But for somebody who's never done online workouts or has any idea how these online trainings work, I know that they're becoming very popular nowadays. But for somebody who's making their initial transition into them, how do these work out? Do they have to have weights at home? Do they have to have, are there tiers? Like how do these workouts work?
Yeah, so you normally sign up for the subscription, and then there's different things. I would recommend, it depends. There's very few exercises you can do that don't require some level of resistance training. So a lot of them do require dumbbells or bands or things like that. But there are a lot of workouts that I have that don't require those things. For example, I have a lot of cardio exercises, right? Those don't require any type of instruments at all. There are also other kinesthetic exercises on there. There's some for your legs. There's, some for chest. Certain things are harder to isolate. Biceps and triceps, for example, are hard to isolate kinesthetically. So, I do have things for people that don't have equipment, but I would say that it's better to have equipment because then you have more options as far as which classes you can take.
Okay. And by equipment, you mean like resistance bands or weights?
Resistance bands, dumbbells, things like that. Other times we use simple things that everybody has. Like for instance, we also have kickboxing classes on there too. And a lot of times with those, I'll use pillows or a ball of socks or things that are small drills that are based around everyday household items that most people have.
See, and that was what I was just going to follow up on. It's like, because I've seen you use household items when if somebody didn't have like dumbbells, I think you had like a water jug where the person could curl that and still get a very similar workout to it.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff, we do have our advanced section. Obviously, we have a gym section as well. The more advanced you get, especially once you start getting really advanced, you've been doing this stuff a while, home workouts can only take you so far. Eventually, you need a gym. There's just have too much equipment. It'll be easier to overload your muscle groups in a way that will inspire growth. But for most people, I would say for the first year or so, home workouts will get the job done. So a lot of our stuff is catered towards beginners, but we do have things for more people that are more advanced who can work their way up.
Nice. Now, you're also a martial artist. You're a 3rd or 4th degree black belt, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 3rd, going for my 4th this upcoming year. So not 2021, 2022.
Now, how long have you been doing martial arts for?
Ooh, probably, I would say 12 to 13 years now, altogether combined. I did it for a couple years as a little kid, and then I quit because I wanted to play sticks with my friends in the woods and didn't have the interest in going to karate anymore. But then, you know, I went through a lot of bullying in middle school and stuff like that, to the point where I was kind of on the brink of suicide and depression and things of that nature. So there's one time, you know, we eventually moved from where I was being bullied from to another place, but sure enough, you know, you go from one bully, there was always going to be another. And while this one wasn't as physical as the ones from before, he definitely mouthed off a lot. And one day I got tired of it and beat him up in front of the school, liked how it felt, and kept going.
Okay.
Went with karate for a while, and then eventually it was, okay, well, I'm good at karate and I might be one of the better people in the dojo, but I want to be one of the better people no matter where I go. So that's where I made that transition from karate into kickboxing and combat fighting.
Okay, yes, and you're a combat fighter now.
Yep. I've been a kickboxer now for, I don't know, 7 years.
Now, usually with artists or musicians or even writers, they have that epiphany, that aha moment, where it all kind of lines up and makes sense for them on why and what they want to do. So it sounds like it might have been that for you with the high school bullying that kind of re-triggered and gave you that aha moment. But for the personal training, the martial arts, even the nutrition, what were those like aha moments for you, or the epiphany for you?
So as far as, obviously the bully was big for me just getting into martial arts as a general rule. As far as wanting to teach it, and this actually kind of coincides with personal training too. So I was a martial arts instructor for a martial arts school called Elite Freestyle Karate. It's further east from here. And I really loved my teens class. I loved my adult class, and I despised every class out of that. All the kids. And that's not to say I wasn't good at it. I'm very good at it, but I just don't get the same level of enjoyment from children, because most of the time you're trying to recorrect behavior while teaching martial arts. And I just don't, I feel like it's a waste of my time. I'm here to teach, and if you're not here to learn, I'd rather just get you out of my class. With kids, you can't be that way. You have to really teach them how to behave, and I just don't get enjoyment from that. But I really love teaching my adult class in particular, because you can relate to them and have conversations with them, and you know, connect with them from one adult human being to another adult human being while still teaching them. And they're there to learn. I don't have to correct somebody's behavior most of the time. So, you know, I really love that. And I didn't want to give that up as far as teaching adults, but I didn't want to have to teach 8 kids classes to get to the one class I liked. So I just said, you know what, coincides, my best friend who runs his own martial arts school was also a personal trainer, and a very lucrative one at that. And he got me into personal training and weightlifting and stuff like that more. So I said, you know what, I want to go into personal training and then just give the option for martial arts instruction as well. And so nutrition obviously goes hand in hand with personal training. So I said, let me offer all 3. And then I also offer self-defense courses. And a big reason for that, and this one is a little more heartfelt, is being Native American myself, a part of the Nipmuc Nation, one of the things that we struggle with is women being abducted from reservations and things like that. There's a lot of human trafficking that goes on, and one of my goals is to do self-defense seminars on different reservations and teach Native people how to defend themselves, and how to look out for each other. And that's not something that's knowledge that's there, because these places are often impoverished.
Yeah.
So,
and that's an excellent goal. Teaching somebody to be able to physically be able to take care of themselves in that kind of adversity it's important. You need to be able to, and the fact that you're doing it that way on the reservations, you're also drawing attention to the fact that there is trafficking going on, not just, usually in the US, when you hear human trafficking, you're either thinking young children, or you're thinking, like West Coast, or like women like being trafficked that are like trying to be like in California or crossing the border, but they kind of omit and neglect the trafficking that occurs with the Native American tribes.
Correct. I think there's 30 women a year that go missing from Montana reservations alone.
That's
if
crazy.
That were any other community, there would be FBI looking around for a human trafficking ring really quick. But because it's reservations, it gets a really big blind eye.
Yeah.
And for me, I go, well, you know what? If government's not going to help, if police agencies aren't going to help, if we can't help, if our own police agencies can't help on the reservations, then the best thing that I can do is give people the tools that they need in order to look out for each other.
Exactly.
And
that's a great way to do it too.
Yeah, but I don't just limit that to reservations. I teach self-defense seminars everywhere. I've done it for a church before. I've done it for businesses before, and especially people are worried about mass shooters and stuff coming in. So how do you respond and stuff like that? It's a valuable skill set. I almost equate it to swimming. It's one of those things that I think everybody should learn how to do, but not a lot of people unfortunately do.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's where I look at it from that. So I do those all together, and I'm just really passionate about all of that and bringing as much value into people's lives as possible.
And that's excellent. Do you, if I'm not mistaken, you also do weapons training?
I do. Certain weapons I'm obviously have more skill with than others. Tomahawks and knives are a specialty of mine. I'm very good with them. I'm good with katanas as well, but I don't think most people are gonna want to figure out how to kendo fight or are worried about a ninja walking down the street. So I wouldn't say that's the one I get a lot of requests to learn.
So you're holding off on Highlander trials.
Yeah, just for now.
Excellent.
But a lot of gun disarms are popular, and for the most part, and I do want to be clear, if someone has a knife or a gun at you and they want your wallet, just give them your wallet.
Okay.
9 times out of 10. It's only if you feel this person's going to kill you anyways, or hurt someone that you love or care about, or hurt anybody near you, and you feel like your only option is to take away that weapon. But I do have disarms and stuff for those as well. So a lot of training like that. But I'll be honest, the crux of my training for most people who just want to learn how to defend themselves is understanding how to read body language and understanding, what a correct distance that somebody who you don't know should be. Those two things by themselves are things a lot of people don't know or pay fully attention to, or something they might be subconsciously but aren't ultra aware of. So I try to I teach a lot more of that. And then of course people want to go into weapons later on if they're more advanced.
And that's one thing I can also highlight here, because I've done some personal training with you in the recent past. And one thing that for our audience that Daylon actually points out is he's not just looking at your opponent, he's also looking at you. He's looking at your body type, your height, your weight, that kind of style. Because, for example, I'm 5'11", 278. So what he's going to show me how to defend against is going to be different from somebody who's like 5'5" and 112 pounds. It's a completely different style that he adapts to you on that personal level, including your physique. Yeah,
because you're not going to face the same threats as a 29-year-old woman who's weighing 115 pounds versus a dude. You might not get grabbed the same way. I know during one of our sessions we were practicing some wrist grabs, and I pointed out that's not something that you're gonna have happen. I don't know a lot of grown men that go up and grab other grown men's wrists.
Exactly.
But it does happen to women often.
Yeah. So you adapt and tailor the self-defense training to the individual, which is crucial. Sometimes when if somebody's gone for self-defense classes or even martial arts training, it usually and this isn't a slap or a diss on any dojos, but usually it becomes a cookie cutter, one size fits all, where on the personal training side, which is what you're doing, and the one-on-one sessions, you custom tailor it to that individual. So you're getting something that's specifically done for your personality, your style, your body type. It's not like you're walking in and everyone's throwing the same punch and throwing the same kick.
Correct, because the truth is, right, so I'm, not everybody, for instance, and I'll give an example. So let's take you and me, for example. I'll keep it simple.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm pretty good at kicking, I would say.
I'm not.
It's not that you're not, but your kicks, you're a bigger guy, so your kicks would make more sense to practice them at lower targets, going for someone's knees, maybe somebody's stomach at the most. But a lot of leg shots and things like that are going to be better kicks that are more garnered towards your body type and your flexibility or lack of it. For me, I'm a little more flexible, so I can go higher with that. But there were strengths, for instance, for you might be as a bigger guy, you might want to close off somebody's space so that you can impose your size. That just makes sense. And that's if we were training, be it for self-defense or I'm training you at a fight as a fighter, I'm going to teach you how to utilize your size to position yourself to win. For somebody like me, I'm muscular, but I'm not huge. So for me, dictating distance and keeping out of spaces that someone like your size could trap me in would be my game plan. And so I would teach people based off of their strengths. If I have somebody who's really flexible, okay, you're really flexible, so you can probably target any area of somebody that you want. Or someone who has really strong hands, they might need to work their movement coming in. So I look at what someone's strengths are, what someone's weaknesses are, and then try to, like you said, cater a style that's very specific to them. And the same way that if it were personal training, if somebody wants to put on muscle or somebody wants to lose weight, I have to design very specific programs. And that goes for diet as well. For example, you might react really well to fasting and somebody else might eat double the amount of calories in that small period in a day. Yeah, because fasting doesn't work for them. So I have to come up with a different diet scheme. It's everything I do is catered to individual people. And that's one of the things I didn't love about teaching group classes, especially as a martial arts instructor, is I did have to go with a cookie cutter-ish scheme and then give individual tips as I went around. But it's not the same thing. When I work on with someone individual, the rewards they reap at the end of it are much higher than the rewards you reap if you're in a group setting, in my opinion. Yeah. But that being said, there are benefits to group settings as well, training partners and things of that nature.
There's people you can work with that are going to be coming in at the same level of experience or close to it.
Correct. And so you get to grow with other people together. So there is a benefit to group classes as well, which I'm open to doing and have done for people in the past. I just think one-on-one training really develops your skill set faster, at least initially.
Yeah, I tend to think so too. Now you're also, like we touched on it a little bit. You're also a combat fighter.
Yeah. So
so what led you down? Like, I know you did the martial arts and you're also doing the personal training, but what led you down that path of being a combat fighter? Because it's one thing to defend yourself and teach self-defense and be ready if the fight comes to you, but with combat fighting, you're kind of going and you're bringing the fight to someone else.
Yeah.
Which is entertaining and cool.
Yeah, this one is probably a more vain answer, but the truth is I wanted to be the best. Once you get to
wrong with that.
Once you get to the best in, your dojo, which I got to, it was okay. Well, now I want to be the best in the next dojo or the dojo that's next door to here. And then once I'm better than them, I want to chase something else. And eventually it got to the point where I wanted to be the baddest man in any room I walked in, which is still a goal that hasn't happened. Because if I step in with my best friend who's a 6th degree, His name's Herman Ocasio. Shout out to him. Master of Karate. He owns his own school. But when I step into the room with him, I'm very quickly reminded, you're not the baddest guy in the room right now. So, you know, and there's other people like that too. And it's humbling, but it also, my goal, as much as, you know, he's my best friend and I love his wisdom, my goal is to surpass him. And the way my goal is to surpass everybody. You know, I want, it's going to sound vain, but I want, no matter who it is or who I'm fighting, I want their level to be earth and my level to be essentially heaven. You know, we're worlds apart. They're not even in the same playing field. And until I'm at that point, I'm just not happy. So, and like I said, I don't know that I'll ever get there, but it's worth striving for anyways. I like being efficient, and a lot of people who have black belts, I've seen a ton of people with black belts. Sometimes kids get them as like candy, which pisses me off.
Yeah, I've heard that from different instructors in the past too, where it feels like it becomes a natural progression instead of it being a earned tier process.
Correct. I don't believe you should have a black belt before you're 16. Personal opinion. I just, if a 14-year-old, fights a 30-year-old, that 14-year-old is going to get creamed. I don't care how good your karate is, unless you're like one of these weird 14-year-old kids who hit puberty and became a grown man at 12.
Funny story.
but for the rest of us, that just isn't the case. And in most times, if I'm dealing with a 14-year-old kid, regardless of whether or not I have karate, they're probably not going to be able to take more than 3 punches from me as a grown man. And I'm not even a huge grown man. Let's say it's a guy who's 220 pounds. You got nothing, dude. So my thing with that is it should be earned. You have to be able to defend yourself adequately, across the board to have a black belt. I don't even think some people have been training 10 years are worthy of a black belt. Like, I'm very strict about who I think deserves one and who doesn't, but definitely not kids. But what I will say is even people who are black belts who I've met who might be really fantastic at katas, or even some of them who are really good at weapons, when they get into fighting somebody, they just don't know how to fight that well. And I realized, like, being a black belt doesn't make you a good fighter. I remember that because I had really good kicks and I went in against a guy who was a former Marine who had really great boxing, and he just suffocated me. And I didn't know how to box that well at the time. I was 19 or 20, and he lit me up like a Christmas tree. And I realized real quick, you better get some boxing. You can't, having a black belt is not the same thing as being a good fighter.
Yeah.
And so I switched to, okay, I still pursue your black belts and your traditional martial arts goals, but let's move towards being the best fighter that you can be. And so now I'm competitive. I'm just ultra competitive. I just want to step in and be the best.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So now, usually, like for writers, musicians, artists, they usually they have influences, people that inspired their style. With your fighting technique, does that happen with fighters as well? Or are they, like, for example, I know a lot of people who do like Kung Fu or Wushu were very inspired by Bruce Lee and his Jeet Kune Do style of fighting. Yeah. Are there any fighters that inspired your style of fighting?
Yeah, absolutely. Bruce is definitely a starting point for me as a traditional martial artist. My dad I remember thinking like Jet Li was so cool, and then my dad introduced me to Bruce Lee, and I was like, who's that guy? No, I'm just kidding. But I loved Bruce Lee and Donnie Yen were probably my 2 big ones growing up, especially because Donnie Yen was the first one to take martial arts movies and then make them almost have MMA elements in them. Particularly Flashpoint was one I was big with as a kid. I loved that movie, still do. So I would say Donnie Yen and Bruce Lee were probably a starting point when I was younger. As I've grown older, I've looked at other influences as well. I like Edson Barboza in the UFC. I think he's a fantastic example of like what a pure striker should look like and be like, and he's very, very good and efficient. I like George St. Pierre, even though he's more of a wrestler, but I did like his composure, even more his philosophy when it came to fighting is something that I was really big with. But even I'll be honest, there's even a couple fictional characters in there, and I'm not talking like Goku because I can't teleport across the screen. But and I'm definitely not Yamcha.
You got me with that one. Yeah.
But,
a little inside joke between myself and Daylon Cossingham.
But for instance, if you look at Assassin's Creed games, one of the big ones and one of my favorites was Connor Kenway from the third Assassin's Creed game. And a lot of his fighting, so especially because they use a lot of MMA moves to fulfill his combat system and style, there were a lot of things that I took from there that I went, man, that's really cool. You know, being able to throw maybe a hook and then a spinning back fist off of that hook was a combination that I took straight from that game. Another one is, you know, hitting somebody, knocking them back, and then falling through with a step behind side kick, taken straight from that game. And then it didn't, obviously being Native American and having a lot of combat experience or training experience with the weapon of a hatchet or a tomahawk.
Yeah.
Translated, there were a lot of the same moves that were utilized in that game that I had already learned. So there was a lot from that game in particular where I went, man, that guy's combat style is cool. So I took that. I took things from Edson Barbosa. I took things from Bruce Lee. I took things, a lot of it that was taught to me by Herman Ocasio. And my first instructor, who was also a professional kickboxer, his name was Sirkin Yilmaz. Between all of them, I just took every lesson I could and I blended things together until I found something that resembled what I am now.
Nice, nice. Now you mentioned Donnie Yen. For people who don't know martial arts, is there anything he's worked on that you can kind of so people can get a better understanding of who Donnie Yen is? Yeah.
Obviously, if you've ever seen the movie Ip Man, which is about Bruce Lee's instructor, that's a great one. Okay. I like elements of Wing Chun, but I don't think it's an effective system by itself. So if you're looking for like, man, is he great? Like that movie in itself is great. It's a great show point of Wing Chun as itself. But I would say if you're looking to see like Donnie Yen actually performing and actually fighting in a way that I go, man, this is a dude who I watched. I would say Flashpoint, which is an MMA movie where he's a detective, and it's got a lot of MMA style fight scenes that are just terrific and fantastic. Some of the most realistic fighting I've seen in movies. I would put it right up there with The Raid as far as how good it is. And then the second one I would say is, I think it's called SPL, Kill Zone or something like that. And that's a good one that he does as well. And that one has a lot more weapon work, but it's like knives and batons are a lot of the weapon work. And that's cool too. So those two ones are the ones I would watch if you want to get a more of a handle on Donnie Yen style. That I would say that I replicate in some ways.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Now, are there any, what are the current projects you're working on? Because between Ronin Fitness, the nutrition side of it, the self-defense training, and the combat sports of it, what are you currently working on that we can kind of plug here?
Yeah. So obviously our subscription has grown more and more. We've come out with a lot more higher quality videos. I haven't been posting as much to Facebook because we really took the time to make some higher quality videos. I just posted one the other day. Or the other week that was really, really solid. So definitely look out for newer videos on the subscription that are awesome. I'm trying, like I said, a lot of self-defense seminars that I'm looking to book, especially as COVID ends, especially for Native Americans, is something that I'm really planning on working on right now. But I would say, you know, I'm about ready to team up potentially with a company called Aspire Fitness. Probably here going towards the fall, and it's run by a great personal trainer, somebody who, as far as I can tell, is just as good as myself. So I plan on teaming up with them, and if you want in-person training from me, I would go through Aspire, and then all Aspire members will actually have access to Ronin too. So it'll be kind of a symbiotic relationship that way, hopefully, if things work out. But you know, future can always change.
Yep. And you also do like self-defense training in corporate settings too. So like, for example, a company an office wants to bring you in for self-defense training, you do that. And then you also do specified tailored to women's self-defense training as well in a similar corporate setting. So if there's companies that are looking to book you, they'll have the links available in the description below of this video.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm big with too. And with women and companies, as far as like the difference, it's not a lot of one, but like for instance, the first half of that seminar is the same, but the second half in terms of because the first half is a lot of knowing how much someone should distance from you, things that I've already discussed a little bit earlier. And stuff like that. But once then it goes into striking, like what are some correct ways to strike if you have to. And then the third part and the last part of the seminar is, different holds and grabs. And the holds and grabs is where it delegates a little bit. Women have very specific holds and grabs that are a little different from if I just do one in a corporate setting. However, if you did want to get what we call a novice certification, saying that you've completed the entire system, it's actually 4 actual sessions of, so let's say an office wanted to hire me and they wanted that novice certification to say everyone in here has gone through, the certification process that I offer. As far as self-defense, they go through 4 different sessions, and those 4 are, the first one is, like I said, pretty much social distancing, without COVID, just how to distance yourself properly, basic strikes, basic holds. Second one is more advanced holds and different ways that people are going to grab you. The third one is weapons, so knives, guns, things like that. And then the last one is being able to put all of them together and different drills that work that way. So the fourth one is really a summary of the 3, making sure that you have all the content material. But it's distancing, basic strikes, holds and grabs, more advanced strikes, more advanced holds, and then knives and guns.
Oh, excellent. That's awesome. Now, usually with and I keep teetering back to this just because me being a musician, I tend to do it in a musical format kind of way of like what songs and stuff like that. But if you were going to pick one fight that you wanted to share with somebody, like what fight would it be? Like MMA, boxing, kickboxing, what fight, like a fight that you saw that said, this is the fight you need to see, that
Ooh, like
for example, when people talk about music, they usually say like, hey, you got to hear the song from like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or, Metallica or Alice in Chains, or like a different band that's kind of like, this is the song you need to hear. Fight wise, what fight would you recommend somebody to go check out?
Ooh, I'm gonna name 2
go for
that
it.
Are based off of ones that I like. There's a lot of great fights out there. It's hard for me to narrow this down. I'm just gonna list 2 of my favorites because there's so many good ones.
Yeah.
I would say Edson Barbosa versus Terry Edom is a great one. It was the first spinning wheel kick knockout in UFC, and I think
do you remember the UFC fight number?
I don't. It's one of the earlier ones.
But you said it was Edson Barbosa versus who?
Terry Edom.
Okay, so Edson Barbosa versus Terry Edom. That was the first wheel kick knockout in UFC history. So if anybody wants to YouTube that, go after you finish watching this video, go check out that fight. And you said there was another one you wanted to point out?
Yeah. And the other one I wanted to point out is actually I like a lot of his stuff. He's got a video on YouTube of his Thai fights. His name is Jaid El-Birni.
Jaid El-Birni, okay.
And he does a lot of Muay Thai fights, but he came from a traditional karate background. He actually has the same style of karate that I started with. He has the exact same. It's Yukishin Budo karate. So very similar styles. So he throws a lot of the same similar techniques that I do. And so he mixes it with Muay Thai. We're a little different. He's a little lankier than I am. So his style is a little bit more based on him keeping really long distance from people, where I tend to get a little closer, but it's very similar. I would actually say my mix is probably a mix of Edson Barbosa and Jaid El-Birni. It's somewhere in the middle.
Nice. And both of those guys, if you look them up on YouTube, you'll find some videos on them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. So, is there anything or anyone you want to plug or promote at the, that we can put in the description below as well? Obviously, there's going to be a link to Ronin Fitness, but
Yeah.
is there anything else that you're doing that you want to take a moment to give a shout out to?
Yeah, definitely look at Ronin Fitness. Look at Aspire Fitness as well. And I believe his name is Garrett, and it begins with a Z. I can't think of how to say his last name. I'm not gonna try and mess it up on here.
Okay.
But he's Aspire Fitness is the name of it. It's like a black and then like a silver kettlebell as the logo. So it's a sick logo.
And we'll be providing that link in the description below along with Ronin Fitness. For people to find, make it a little easier. Now, for my last question, you got one more you want to plug?
Yeah.
Go for it, man. Go for it.
Which is if you're looking for premier martial arts instruction, and you're closer to the Boston area, particularly North Boston area, look at masterOkarate.com. He's my instructor, Herman Ocasio. Like I said, if you think I'm good, and I think I'm good, he's tremendous. Everything that I'm good at, he taught me how to be good at it, both with instruction and with fighting, as far as how to pick up on patterns and things like that. Like, he took me from a guy who was just good at striking and putting combos together to a guy that really thinks and is methodical when he fights. So that's been a big change for me. I was winning fights barely, and now I'm winning fights, or not barely, but I was winning them by much smaller margins than I am since I've worked with him. So if you're looking for, the best martial arts instruction that you can get really around, and like I said, you're in the greater Boston area, especially up north, I would go Master Karate in Linfield would be another one that I'd plug. But those two and my own would be great to follow.
Okay, wonderful. And we'll have links to all those three in the video description, of the video. Now, before we sign off, tell everyone where they can find you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like all the socials. Just give a rapid fire.
Yeah, YouTube, look up Ronin Fitness. There should be a couple videos there. That YouTube channel is still being developed. On Facebook, Roninfitnesstraining. On just our website in general is www.roninfitnesstraining.com. That's a great website that we put up. It's got merchandise, it's got our subscription, it's got access to a lot of other information. So definitely check out that one. Facebook, I already said. Instagram, it's the same thing, Ronin Fitness Training, but you can also, I post a little more regularly on my personal profile, which is Cause Fitness and Martial Arts Training, with underscores. So Cause_Fitness, and I don't know, you'll find it. It looks like a cartoon picture of me.
Yep. And we're gonna have, and we'll have links to all the social handles as well. So it's gonna be this video will be a one-stop shop for anyone interested in your personal training and every other option that you just mentioned. Before I sign off, so I want to thank Daylon Cossingham for joining us on this episode of Alex Lopez Talks. If you like what you're seeing, please remember to give us a like, a subscribe, and ring that bell for notification. Every little bit counts, and it'll towards making this channel keep going. So again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you to Daylon Cossingham for this interview. So again, check them out, Ronin Fitness.